Hey guys, welcome to my book review channel, and here's what we're going to cover today, which is a huge and important book that I think should be in every single person's library, which is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. So if you have not read this book, guys, please pick it up. It's actually an extremely easy read, and what I mean by easy is it's quick. It's a quick read. It's not an easy read because there's a lot of detail about what happened in the Nazi camps out in Germany and all that good stuff. But before I dive into what I took from this book and why you should go pick it up, I want to explain why I'm making this channel. First reason I'm making this channel is I want more people to read books because I 100% believe that reading creates freedom long term. And there's people out there that don't understand that when you can get free knowledge, and I can get information from Viktor Frankl and not have to go through what he did to understand it, and I still won't truly understand what he understands, but it actually allows for you to get a better perspective. That's number one, is more people need to read. Number two is I'm reading 60 books plus this year. I've already read over 12 right now in the first quarter of the year, and I'm super excited about that. And the reason is I'm gonna be able to come back to my channel at the end of the year, and I'm gonna be able to look at all these book reviews and basically remember what I took from this book. Now, what I want to give you guys really quick is the fact that with this book, I've actually read it 3 different times in the last decade. The reason I continuously read it every few years is because there's an important takeaway from this book, okay? Now, again, if you don't know who Viktor Frankl is, I really didn't know until I started reading about him, is he's just an extremely extraordinary person. He's a psychologist, a doctor, and unfortunately, and part of his life was lived in a Nazi camp, and he actually survived it, which is not very likely, and a lot of people died back then. But what he talks about is this. These are my top 3 takeaways from this book. So the first one is simple, is that we are actually all human. And I think this is actually a really cool thing for us to remember, especially when you start moving up the ladder of success, is that I don't care how successful you are. I don't care how poor you are. I don't care about any of that. We are all human. So what he told a story about in the book, which is insane to me if you think about it from this perspective. They were all in this Nazi camp, and they were sitting there, and they're eating, and he's looking around the table, and one of the persons looks at him and goes, "I remember when that guy was the president of the bank." And now they were all equals again. So we're all just human beings, right? And we, obviously some people rise to more success than others, but it does not matter, guys, how much money you make. You're still the same person you are no matter where you go, whether you make money or you don't. Now, make some money. But what I took from that, is that understand that we're all human. And I love that perspective because it allows for me, 1, to humble myself, but 2, it allows for me to look at people that are way more successful than me and realize that they're just the same as all of us. They just happen to either get more experience, more time, or they've actually just taken advantage of their opportunities a little bit differently than we have. So understand that's my number 1 takeaway from this book. We're all human, okay? So number 2 is how many people out there allow their self-image to be reflected by their job, their money, and certain different aspects of their life. And I think this is an important one where I used to get wrapped up in what kind of car I drove and all that. And once I got the nice car, it hasn't really changed who I am. Now, yes, when some people are like, that's a nice car, and it gives a perception that I'm successful. But ultimately, at the end of the day, guys, is that you have to understand, and from what I took from this book, is that too many people have their self-image wrapped up in that. And when I grew up, which is more of a blue-collar neighborhood, when people got laid off, you saw all these guys go to the bar, drink their sorrows away. And the reason they did that is because their self-image was wrapped in the fact that they were a steel worker, or they were this, and now no longer had they had that image. So what you have to figure out is, who are you really? Right? And that took me a long time because I've definitely gone through a few depressions in my life in regards to when my businesses were up and down, and you still see it with many people out there who are billionaires or millionaires, and then a business collapses and they lose a couple $1 million and they go into a deep depression because their image is wrapped into that item. And I know it's difficult, guys, because we live in a world where when you're in college, your identity is based on your major, right? Or what fraternity you're in or sorority. And when you're out of college and you're in the real world and you're an adult, it's what do you do for a living? And again, it's insane how much we wrap our self-images in what we do for work. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, which I thought was just a crazy perspective that I still don't know if my brain can wrap around, is that true freedom. I talk about freedom all the time, financial freedom, being free of, just understanding that you can do whatever you want in your life, all that kind of stuff. But true freedom is being basically free of fear of death. Right now, again, because I think sometimes we forget that we're not invincible, and I think a lot of people think they are. And then all of a sudden we hit a point where we start freaking out if that we're getting closer and closer to being old, right? Now, understand we all are born and we all die. And eventually we will all die. But if you're not afraid of that, you can live your life a lot more free. And in this book, he discusses how he got rid of that and became super free, because basically every day they were on the chopping block. Now, we don't live in a world like that anymore, because pretty much we're given everything we want. We live under nice roofs, we eat whatever we want, etc. But understand that true freedom, and what Viktor Frankl's talking about, and I took this from the book, is that true freedom is when you have zero fear of death. Number 4, which is probably one of the biggest takeaways from this book, which is you have to suffer to be successful. Now, what he talks about is this, is you shouldn't self-inflict suffering. But to be successful, so whether, like for me right now, I'm trying to become a bodybuilder, and when you go to the gym, you are actually creating pain and suffering by lifting weights. You're ripping your muscles apart. And that has to go for everything in our world. The problem is this, is we live in a very easy world, like I mentioned, and I'm not complaining, okay? I like it. I think it's great that I can eat when I want to eat. I like that I can have a roof over my head and be warm. But from what I discovered, especially from listening to millions of books, okay, not millions, but hundreds of books, and I've listened to tons of podcasts on this. If you get a chance, Google David Goggins. He's a badass, but basically, again, another guy who preaches that you have to suffer to truly be successful. And for me, it's just insane when you see it over and over and over again, many successful people understanding that, hey, you have to go through pain, right? The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. You hear those different statements all over and over and over again, but you have to suffer to be successful. So I don't have time to go into that. That could be a freaking whole nother book. And there's many people out there who believe in that, and I do too, that you have to go through the struggle to truly be successful. If you're not in that process of pushing yourself to the limit, that's the same equivalent of me going to the gym and lifting 10-pound dumbbells and saying, why am I not growing muscles? Last but not least, for this book, guys, as this is in many books, Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and I just read another book recently that had it in there, but I love it that Viktor Frankl's talking about this, which is you have to know why you're here. And what he's talking about is when he was in this Nazi camp, there was many guys there that gave up, and they just didn't have a why anymore. And most of them had the why of getting back to their families, getting home, all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, when a lot of them got back, they didn't have the actual why that they were wanting. A lot of them got super depressed, and some of them even died, right? Even though they didn't die in the Nazi camp because of their hope. But this goes for all of us, guys, is that I can give you guys a tip. And, you know, obviously, again, many successful people have given this tip out, and many books I've read, is that you have to know why you're doing something, or you will not achieve what you want. So I'm going to recap really fast, guys, with you. So we're only human, okay? How many people let their self-image reflect based on their money or their job? Freedom, true freedom, is the fear, losing the fear of death, okay? And you have to suffer to succeed. And last but not least, you have to know why you're doing something. So guys, subscribe below, pick up this book. If you watched any of my other book reviews, I had a little less of the yelling at the camera right now. And the reason for that is this book does not need that, because it's so freaking good. What you need to understand is you need to read it, especially if you're trying to figure out what the hell you're doing in your life and get a perspective on success that is different than some of the self-help books out there. This is not a self-help book. This is psychological, how our brains work, how you can actually set yourself up for better success. So again, subscribe, comment. I'm excited for you guys to continue watching my book reviews. Just be aware they're coming out once a week for the whole entire 2018. Check them out. I hope this makes more people read. I'll talk to you guys later.